Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the announcement for my brand new project titled Salvation. Now, typically when I do these sorts of videos, I like to provide you with the basic framework for what I hope the plot of the book to be. I do so with the intention of giving you, the audience, both a roadmap of sorts, a generalized direction for where I believe we're headed, as well as really a sense of where my head's at in the beginning of the creative process. Now, this one is going to be rather unique because, if I'm speaking honestly, I have no intention of really telling you guys much of anything whatsoever. I believe deep down in my gut that the less that you know going in, the less that I tell you, truly the better it's all going to be in the end. I'd love nothing more than to have each and every one of you face every twist and turn, surprise and shock, as blind as you can possibly be. Now, that's not to say that once the ball gets rolling a little bit here and more updates start to come out, that I won't gradually release more and more little bits of information to you. But especially right now in the beginning of everything, I really just want to focus on playing things as close to the chest as I possibly can in the name of protecting the mystery, so to speak. What I am prepared to give you right now, however, is a little bit of background on salvation itself. See, because it and I coincidentally go back a lot farther than just this video right here, right now. Salvation was a short story that I originally wrote in 9th grade during a creative writing session. Couldn't really tell you where it came from or how it came to be or anything like that. But I ended up with a story where I placed myself on death row. And as it progressed, it chronicled my struggles from the time that I entered into the state penitentiary all the way up to the final moments before my execution. This is a story that has come to mean so much to me over the years. And I chalk that up to two main factors. First of which is because this was the first real serious thing that I'd ever written. Now, of course, I'd written some little piddly things here and there over the years to get to this point. But this is the first time that I can remember putting the pen to paper with the genuine intention of creating something. That, and it's the first piece that I can recall my grandpa reading and or having a genuine interest in. For whatever reason, he read this thing front to back and fell absolutely head over heels in love with it. Still adores the thing to this day and mentions it in passing every opportunity he gets. I remember quite vividly, though, the first time that he read through it. He told me that it felt and read like a James Cagney script, which, for those of you who are unaware, basically implies that it felt like an old gangster or mobster film, which has always sort of intrigued me because I don't remember writing it with any sort of specific genre or flavor in mind. You know, I had the characters, I had the situation, I had all that. And I just figured that however it came out in the end was how it was going to be, end of story. So the fact that he kind of latched onto that and gravitated toward that during his personal experience with it, I've always found sort of interesting. Fast forward to my college years, very similar situation. Creative writing class where we are charged with coming up with our very own short stories to be judged and critiqued by a jury of our peers. Being as dumb as a fox as I believed I was, I came up with the brilliant idea to, rather than suffer, rather than stress about coming up with an original idea from the ground up, off the cuff, why not just blow the dust off one of the numerous short stories and little various writings that I had laying around and see if I couldn't flesh it out a little bit more, breathe some new life into it. And thus, salvation reemerged in my life. Now, I just want to state something before I move on to expressing what I wish to here. Is that I fully accept responsibility for everything that happened. It is 100% my fault for offering up a story that is so near and dear to my heart. Unknown to me at the time, to what felt like an absolute slaughtering. This was a situation that taught me some valuable lessons when it comes to writing. And I don't have anything against the teacher. I think she was a phenomenal person, great to joke around with, great to talk to, all of that stuff. But the issue was, she was a teacher who thought she knew everything about writing because she had a degree in it. And she preached some bullshit set of rules. A lot of bizarre do's and don'ts, rights and wrongs, based on people who, or based on a book written by people who thought the same thing that she did. And from where I was sitting, obviously, as anybody would in that situation, my main concern was fulfilling the task and getting a good grade in the class. But by doing so, by making all of the alterations and attempting to appease my teacher and her stupid viewpoints, and I think everybody in the class as a whole, that jury of my peers, I really felt salvation start to slip away from me. I watched as my creative voice became buried and I no longer recognized my words on the page. I blinked, and when everything was said and done, salvation didn't really feel like my story anymore. I might as well have not even been there because I really didn't feel like I had a hand in it. It was my teacher's story at that point. It was the class's story. And like I said, it was 100% my fault for putting both myself and my story in that situation. I should have just kept it safe and came up with something original. But I ended up walking away very angry from that situation. And for a long time, I felt very hurt, very deeply hurt by that. But over the years, this nagging feeling in the back of my head never left me. This feeling like there had to be something more that I could do, some way I could fix things, some way I could rectify the mistake that I had made. And I just couldn't shake the feeling that salvation was meant to be more. That it was meant to be a part of something bigger. Fast forward to not too terribly long ago, I was watching a horror movie and just kind of brainstorming to myself. And I proposed the question of, what if someone like me, someone crippled, someone with CP, was the villain in a horror movie? Now, I suppose at the time specifically I was wondering about being a slasher villain, but any real antagonist would do. Just what if someone like me was the antagonist in a horror movie? Now, that is the one piece of plot information that I will give you in this video, so write it down because it is important. But anyway, I asked myself that question. It's kind of spitballing ideas. That's when it all started to snowball. That's when the gears started to turn. And it was all right there in front of me. It hit me. Salvation is and was always meant to be a horror story. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The more I realized that with a few tweaks, some focus in particular areas of the plot, some attention on certain aspects of it, it could very easily become it could go from that mobster or gangster type scenario that my grandpa saw in it and go to something much darker, more sinister and heavier. Now, I say horror, but because that is the original idea that I have. That is the original concept that I came up with. But I am fully anticipating that when this thing is said and done, it will actually feel a lot more like thriller or suspense. And to be honest with you, I'm not really even sure a specific type of horror that it would be. What I can tell you is I think this is a narrative that has a lot of different layers to it, a lot of complexities, and a lot of different gears. So essentially, I think it has the possibility to be various different things at different times. I think it goes without saying at this point that this is a very special project to me. Maybe even more so than every other thing I've worked on up to this point. Because I think everything I've created up to this point has become special over time. You know, I start creating it, I start working on it, And at the end, I look at it all and it becomes something. But with this one, it's starting out important. It's starting out special. I really feel like there's a lot riding on it. This is my chance to make everything right. This is my chance to do right by salvation. And to make an already special scenario all the more special, I'm going to be writing it with my best friend, a Miss Katie Busha, who I've mentioned numerous times on the channel at this point, who is also a major horror fan. It has been a dream come true. The idea of working with her on something. I've always wanted that sort of partnership and to involve her on a project from the very beginning. And I just, it was just a question of which one. And I think, it just lined up so perfectly to where we're both horror fans. I presented her with this plot of a horror story. As I pitched it to her, I don't, she might even remember this story. I don't know. Because we were in high school together, so she might even remember the original story. I don't know, but it just lined up so perfectly to where I came up with this, and she was the first person I thought of to work on it. I pitched it to her. She didn't even hesitate. But it's always been a dream to work on something so special with someone that likewise is so near and dear to me. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what that collaboration will look like. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what my original story mixed with her creative inputs and suggestions and just overall involvement. I'm very much excited to see what that will produce. So yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Is my best friend and I are writing Salvation as a horror story. Now, what happens next? What's the next step? And whenever I would think about Salvation as a physical book, I always pictured the original short story somewhere in the back of it to provide, I guess, sort of a all-encompassing saga of, you've got the brand new novel plus the short story that inspired it, all in one. And I'd very much like to still make that happen. So I think the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the handwritten version of the original Salvation story that I have in the notebook that I've carried with me since 9th grade. I'm going to type it up, make it look all neat and nice, and I will turn it into a short and sweet How to Reads episode, just to give you guys kind of a starting point, and to familiarize you guys with the story that we are building upon. And then I suppose from there, I'll probably just roll into working on the actual book itself. But I promise you guys will be updated on everything as I go. You guys won't miss anything. I just ask that you keep an eye on it. I hope that you are excited as I am, looking forward to getting back to work and giving you guys something new to enjoy. So until work begins, boys and girls, be good to each other, and I'll see you next time.